You think they love you, huh? You think those smiles, those hugs, those "I'm here for you" texts mean something real? Don't be fooled. People are actors, baby. Some are Oscar-worthy. They look you dead in the eye and sell you a fantasy wrapped in comfort, stitched with promises they never plan to keep. The truth? They love the version of you that serves their comfort. The quiet one, the soft one, the available one, the one that listens to all their drama but never dares to spill his own. They don't love you, they love the role you play in their show. The moment you drop the script, the moment you step out of line, the applause dies, the curtains fall, and suddenly you're too much, too cold, changed. No, you didn't change, you just stopped performing, you took the mask off, and what a crime that is, right? Because God forbid you show your scars, your rage, your boundaries. Let me tell you something most people will never say out loud. They don't care about your truth. They care about their convenience. You're allowed to break, sure, but quietly. You're allowed to cry, but only behind closed doors. You're allowed to struggle, but don't you dare make them uncomfortable with your pain. Keep it hidden. Keep it pretty. Keep it silent. And what happens when you don't? They ghost you. They label you. They walk away with zero explanation and act like you're the villain. But that's the trick, right? That's the joke. They make you believe you were the problem all along, that your honesty, your vulnerability, your rawness was the reason they ran. Don't be fooled. That wasn't love. That was control disguised as affection. That was need disguised as care. That was manipulation wearing a smile. People like to say, "I'm not like the others." Yeah? Watch how fast they become exactly like the others the moment they don't get what they want. Loyalty? It's cheap talk. Most of them are loyal until their comfort is threatened. Then they flip. Then they vanish. Then they call you crazy while they rewrite the story to make themselves the hero. You ever notice how villains are always the ones who finally snapped after being used too long? There's a reason for that. Sometimes the only way to be free is to become the very thing they fear. Not because you're evil, but because you're done. Done being used. Done being polite. Done playing the fool. You burn the bridge, not out of hate, but because you finally understand. They never planned to walk across it with you. They just wanted to camp on it until someone better came along. And oh, they will come back. Not all of them. But the ones who knew you were real. They'll return when the fake ones fail them. When the lies catch up. When the silence they once loved becomes too loud to bear. They'll knock. They'll smile. They'll say, "I miss you." And in that moment, you gotta remember what they did when you needed them. Not what they say now. Don't be fooled by nostalgia. It's a liar, too. It makes poison taste like wine. It makes scars feel like blessings. It makes you forget that the same hands reaching out now once let go of you like you were nothing. You owe them nothing. Not your time, not your response, not even your hatred. Just silence and success. That's your revenge. That's your closure. They always said you were the strong one, didn't they? That's the funny part. They praised your strength right up until you started using it for yourself. As long as your strength was used to carry them, to lift them, to fix them, it was admirable. But the moment you turned that strength inward, to protect yourself, to rebuild your shattered mind, to walk away from people who only showed up when it benefited them, they flipped the script. You've changed, they said. You're cold now. No. You just stopped bleeding for people who'd never even offer you a bandage. You got tired of being everyone's lifeline while you were drowning. You learned that survival isn't pretty. It's brutal, it's selfish, and it's lonely. But it's necessary. And once you realize that, once you step out of the addiction to being liked, there's no going back. You see the game for what it is. A stage full of cowards pretending to be loyal. Actors reciting lines of love with knives behind their backs. And suddenly, silence becomes peace. Solitude becomes power. You stop chasing, you stop proving, you stop hoping. And that's when you win. People won't tell you this, but I will. Your value doesn't rise or fall based on who stays. It's not a discount tag that gets slashed every time someone walks away. The ones who left you when you were raw and honest, let them go. That was their test. They failed. They wanted the version of you that didn't set boundaries, that didn't ask for respect, that didn't demand the same energy in return. They wanted access, not connection. Control, not love. And when you stopped playing their game, they labeled you the problem. But guess what? That label is freedom. When they call you cold, distant, difficult, it means you're no longer easy to manipulate. That scares them. They're used to people who fold. But you burned the handbook. You rewrote the rules. And now they can't read you anymore. That silence they once mocked, it's loud now. Loud enough to make them uncomfortable. Loud enough to echo all the things they refused to hear when you were screaming for understanding. And the truth is, they don't really want the healed version of you either. Healing makes you see through lies. It sharpens your vision. It makes you question everything you once accepted. And that's dangerous. To them. Because once you heal, they lose their grip. You stop apologizing for things you didn't do. You stop making excuses for their absence. You stop begging for time, love, attention. You stop explaining your worth like it's some forgotten math problem they just couldn't solve. Healing is rebellion. It says, I'm enough without you. And that, my friend, is the greatest threat to people who built their self-worth on keeping you small. They want you doubting, hurting, reaching, but not rising. never rising. That's why they'll try to pull you back the moment you start climbing, with guilt, with shame, with fake apologies and half-baked promises. But remember this, anyone who truly cared wouldn't need a second chance to prove it. Love doesn't leave. Real doesn't vanish when things get hard. You ever notice how they only miss you when you stop playing the fool? When your silence becomes louder than your words ever were. That's when they check in. That's when they remember you. Not when you were giving, loving, loyal, but when you vanished. When you stopped being their safety net, their emotional dumpster, their free therapist. Suddenly, you matter again. But it ain't about love. It's about access. Access to your energy, your presence, your ability to make them feel important. Don't be fooled. Guilt is their weapon now. Manipulation is their tone. You disappeared, they'll say. You've become cold. Damn right you did. Cold, like the nights you cried alone. Cold, like the responses they gave when you needed warmth. Cold, like the silence they fed you when you begged for truth. Cold, like the lessons that pain wrote into your bones. You didn't become cold out of hate. You became cold to survive. To stop burning for people who would never even light a match for you. You froze because warmth was always used against you. You see, most people don't love you. They love the control they have over you. And love without respect is just manipulation wearing lipstick. They want the old version of you, the one that stayed no matter what, that listened without being heard, that gave without receiving, that showed up every time, even when they never did. But the old you is dead, buried under every ignored message, every one-sided conversation, every time you showed up and were met with silence, every fake apology, every emotional breadcrumb tossed your way like you should be grateful for scraps. And you were, weren't you? Back then, you were thankful for the bare minimum. You believed the bare minimum was love. That as long as they didn't leave, it meant they cared. But staying ain't loyalty if it's only for convenience. And love that makes you feel less, love that drains you, love that leaves you questioning your worth, it's not love. It's a leash. Let me break it down for you. People will treat you exactly how you let them. That's not a quote. That's a law. You teach them how to respect you by what you tolerate. You let them ignore you once. They'll do it twice. You let them disrespect your time once. They'll waste it forever. You let them come and go as they please. They'll make you their emotional Airbnb. Free stay, no commitment. And the moment you finally demand more, the moment you finally stand up and say, I deserve better, they'll act like you're the one who changed. But truth is, you just stopped lying to yourself. You stopped making excuses for behavior that was slowly killing your self-worth. And that scares them. Not because they love you, but because they can't use you anymore. because your silence means they lost control. And people fear what they can't control. They'll tell others you became distant, bitter, rude. Let them talk. Let them spread whatever version of the story helps them sleep at night. You're not in this world to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. The ones who matter will feel your silence louder than your presence ever was. And the ones who don't, they never really saw you in the first place. They saw a tool, a stepping stone, a source of attention, validation, power, but not you, never you. So now it's your turn, not to get revenge, not to prove them wrong, but to live so loudly in your peace, in your purpose, in your truth, that your absence screams in rooms you don't even walk into anymore. That's the real win, that's the payback, not a post, not a clapback, not even a confrontation, just distance, just success, just silence, and the fire they thought they killed in you still burning. They'll swear they didn't mean to hurt you, that it wasn't intentional, that they were just going through something. But let me tell you this, intent don't erase impact. A bullet fired by accident still kills. A knife thrown in confusion still cuts. And the damage they did to your mind, your trust, your peace, that was real, whether they admit it or not. You spent nights questioning yourself, didn't you? Wondering if you were too much, too emotional, too intense. But truth is, you were just real in a world full of masks. You gave love with depth. You gave loyalty with fire. You gave yourself without filters, and they weren't ready for that. So instead of matching your realness, yet they labeled you dramatic. Instead of cherishing your depth, they drowned you in shallow games. And when it got too heavy for them, too raw, too exposing, they ran. Not because you were wrong, but because they couldn't handle someone who made them confront their own emptiness. You gotta stop expecting honesty from people who lie to themselves. Stop expecting effort from people who only know how to take. And stop expecting closure from people who don't even think they hurt you. Some people don't come to heal, they come to feed, to drain you, to latch onto your light because they're too cowardly to ignite their own. Vampires in disguise, smiling, charming, saying all the right words. But pay attention to patterns, not promises. Watch what they do, not what they say. Anyone can say, I love you, but not everyone stays when love requires sacrifice, when it demands consistency, when it asks for accountability. That's where the truth shows up. And most of them fail that test, because love, real love, ain't about butterflies and good mornings. It's about choosing someone even when it's inconvenient. It's about staying when it's hard. It's about protecting what you build, not abandoning it when it cracks. You're not hard to love. That lie they planted in your head, rip it out. You're hard to use. You're hard to manipulate. You're hard to deceive once you wake up. And that's why they left. Not because you were too much, but because you saw too much. Because you started asking for the same energy you gave. Because you started questioning their inconsistencies. Because you stopped pretending their silence didn't hurt. People don't leave because you're unworthy. They leave because you're finally seeing them clearly. And that clarity, it's poison to the fake. They'd rather run than be exposed. They'd rather ghost you than explain why they never intended to stay. They'd rather destroy the bridge and call you toxic than admit they only loved what you did for them, not who you are. So now you sit with that pain, but it's not weakness, it's wisdom in disguise. Every tear you shed taught you something. Every betrayal carved a scar with a story. Every goodbye you didn't get made you stronger than you ever thought you could be. And I know it hurts. It aches in places you didn't even know could bleed. But don't numb it. Don't run from it. Let it shape you. Let it build the version of you that never falls for that trap again. Let it kill the people pleaser. Let it bury the one who kept choosing others while dying inside. Let it resurrect the one who walks alone if he has to, but never walks backwards. That's your rebirth. That's your revenge. Not becoming bitter, not becoming like them, but becoming unreachable to the old version of yourself who would have let them stay. You remember how they looked at you when you finally said, enough? Like you were the villain in the story, like you had flipped the script and betrayed some unwritten contract that said, keep bleeding for us, keep breaking for us, keep being silent, soft, available, even when we're tearing you apart. That look, that stunned silence, that was never confusion. It was fear. Fear that they lost control over someone they thought would never walk away. Fear that their favorite puppet finally cut the strings, and they'll never admit it. But your growth made them insecure. Your detachment made them powerless. They weren't ready for the version of you who chooses himself, who walks with no explanations, who burns bridges with peace in his chest instead of rage. You see, people like them depend on your reaction. They want your anger, your begging, your confusion. Because as long as you're reacting, they're still relevant, still in control. But when you go quiet, when you don't flinch, don't fight, don't explain, that's when they start to panic. Because now you're not just gone, you're gone for good. They thought you'd always be there. They bet on your loyalty, not realizing that loyalty has a limit, that even the strongest hearts snap when they've been bent too far for too long. And it wasn't the lies that broke you, was it? It was the disrespect, the way they made you question your own worth, the way they dismissed your feelings like they were noise, the way they turned your care into a joke, your kindness into a weakness. You gave them love and they gave you silence. You gave them patience and they gave you excuses. You gave them your time, your energy, your trust, and they treated it like spare change. Something to spend when convenient, something to toss when finished. But what they didn't realize is that people like you only break once. And after that, you're no longer the same. You're colder, sharper, smarter, and far, far less accessible. Let them say what they want. Let them paint you as heartless. Let them call you arrogant, selfish, changed. Wear those labels like armor, because the world will always try to guilt you back into the box you outgrew. Especially when you start setting boundaries, especially when you stop accepting breadcrumbs. They'll act like you're the problem simply because you stopped being their solution. But guess what? You were never meant to be their fixer, their healer, their emotional crutch. That was a job you gave yourself because you cared, because you loved deeply, because you saw their wounds and thought you could patch them with your soul. But now you know better. Now you know that some people don't want to be healed. They just want to drain you dry, to keep you around as long as you're useful. And when you're not, they'll discard you like a phase they outgrew. But here's the twist. They never really outgrew you. They just underestimated you. They thought you'd chase, that you'd apologize, that you'd shrink. But instead, you went silent. You leveled up. You healed. And now they have to live with a version of you that doesn't care for explanations, for closure, for approval. You're untouchable now. Not because you're bitter, but because you're awake. Because you finally learned that peace is louder than any argument. That silence is more powerful than any scream. And that self-respect is worth more than any apology you'll never get. And the thing that really haunts them, the part they'll never say out loud, is that you meant it when you walked away. See, they were used to people threatening to leave but never actually going. They were used to slamming doors that stayed unlocked, to endings that were really just pauses. But not you. Not this time. You didn't make a scene. You didn't throw insults. You didn't beg to be understood. You just left. Quietly. Coldly. Fully. And that's what scared them the most. Because it meant they had no power left. No more buttons to push. No more strings to pull. You closed the door without slamming it. And that silence, that's the sound of a lesson they never expected. They were so sure you'd come back. So sure that the guilt, the memories, the what-ifs would bring you crawling. But what they didn't realize is people like you don't beg twice. You gave chances. You gave warnings. You gave love. And when all of that was taken for granted, you gave distance. Permanent, unapologetic, cold-blooded distance. They'll call it bitterness. They'll call it pride. But let them. Let them misunderstand you. Let them turn your healing into an insult. That's how they cope with losing something they thought was theirs to own. But you were never theirs. You were light they tried to put in a box. Fire they tried to contain. And when they failed to control you, they tried to dim you, to break your spirit, to twist your loyalty into shame. But now you're a different breed. Now you don't explain yourself to people who never heard you. You don't soften your truth to protect egos. You don't lower your standards to meet someone halfway when they never took a single step toward you. And that shift is what makes you dangerous. Not to everyone, just to the ones who only loved you when you were easy to manipulate. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything. Their karma is watching you rise while they choke on the silence you left behind, watching you become everything they said you couldn't without them. Watching you build peace where they left chaos. Watching you find love that doesn't require shrinking yourself to be accepted. Because real love doesn't ask you to be less. It doesn't punish your depth, your honesty, your boundaries. It meets you where you are. It stays. It shows up. And it never makes you beg. So when they come crawling back with "I've changed and I miss us," don't let nostalgia trick you. That wasn't love. That was attachment. That was need. That was control. And you're not for sale anymore. You're not available for repeat cycles. You're not their second chance. You're a closed door with peace behind it. Because healing doesn't look like taking them back. Healing looks like deleting the number without hesitation. Like walking past their name without a heartbeat spike. Like laughing with people who never needed to break you just to feel important. Healing looks like choosing yourself every single time and never feeling guilty for it again. That's the power they can't stand. That's the version of you they hoped would never be born. But it's too late now. You woke up. You got up. You moved on. And now they have to live with the echo of the person they destroyed and the silence of the person they'll never get back. They'll swear they remember the good times, that what you had was special. They'll romanticize the memories, replay the laughs, the moments, the "we were different" lies, hoping nostalgia will soften your spine. But don't be fooled. Memory is a weapon in the hands of the manipulative. They'll cherry-pick the smiles and hide the betrayals. They'll whisper, "I miss you," like it means something now. Like it cancels out the nights you cried alone while they ignored your messages. The mornings you woke up with a heavy chest because their silence screamed louder than any goodbye. They'll say, "I never meant to hurt you," but they did, over and over, because hurting you was easier than growing up, than being accountable, than facing the fact that they broke someone real. And the worst part, they thought you'd never leave. They mistook your loyalty for blindness, your patience for weakness, your love for dependency. But when you finally cut that cord, they realized They were never the one holding you together. You were. And the moment you stop being useful to them is the moment they stop caring. That's the harsh law of modern loyalty. Most people don't want love. They want convenience. Someone to listen, but never speak. Someone to give, but never ask. Someone to fix their chaos without ever acknowledging the damage they cause. And when you stop playing that part, when you dare to need, to feel, to demand reciprocity, they vanish, they withdraw, they call you too much. But the truth is, they were never enough. Not for someone like you, someone who sees through the masks, someone who doesn't want half love, conditional affection, or hollow words, someone who needs depth, consistency, real. You scared them, not because you were broken, but because you were whole in ways they refused to become. Let me make something clear. Closure is a myth. You don't need their apology. You don't need their explanation. You don't need them to admit they were wrong. Healing doesn't come from their mouth. It comes from your decision to move on without it. You want peace? Stop replaying the conversations that never ended right. Stop wondering what you could have done differently. You did enough. You were enough. The problem wasn't your heart. It was the hands you placed it in. You gave love to someone who saw it as leverage, not a gift. And now you love yourself enough to never let that happen again. That's growth. That's evolution. That's the version of you that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't explain. That's the version that walks away from tables where respect isn't being served, where loyalty is optional, and where love feels more like a war than a home. And when they ask, "Why'd you change?" tell them, "I didn't. I just finally matched your energy." Tell them, "I stopped being the only one fighting for something we both should have protected." Tell them, "You taught me how to leave by showing me what staying costs." And most importantly, tell them nothing at all, because sometimes the greatest power you have is the one they can't touch. Your absence, your silence, your glow up, your peace. Let that be the lesson. Let that be the closure. Let them sit with the echo of your name, knowing they'll never hear your voice again. Not in love, not in pain, not in apology. You ever think about how they expected you to stay broken just because they left you that way? Like they thought their absence would bury you, paralyze you, make you crawl back, begging for the same treatment that killed you in the first place. But you didn't die. You didn't fold. You didn't drown in the silence they left behind. You built in it. You sat with the pain, looked it dead in the eyes and said, "I'll make something out of you." And you did. You turned heartbreak into fuel, betrayal into blueprints, loneliness into power. And now you move different. You walk heavier, not because you carry baggage, but because you carry less people. You cut dead weight. You stopped over-explaining your worth. You stopped bleeding for people who only loved you when you were easy to use. You hardened, but not into bitterness, into wisdom, into clarity, into discipline. You learned the most dangerous skill of all, how to be alone and not feel empty. And now they feel it, the absence, the void, the way the room doesn't feel right without your energy. You were the one that listened, the one that stayed, the one that gave, even when you had nothing left. You were the consistency they never appreciated until it was gone. And now their new audience doesn't clap the same. Their new toy doesn't shine like you did. The replacements don't come with the same soul, the same depth, the same loyalty, because what they had wasn't common. It was sacred, and they mistook it for something disposable. Now they sit with that mistake. They scroll through your silence hoping for a crack, a post, a message, a sign that you still care. But all they get is the echo, the reminder that they traded gold for dust. And that dust, it's in their lungs now. It chokes them every time they try to rewrite the story and pretend you were the problem. But you're not bitter. You're just done. And being done doesn't mean you hate them. It means you finally loved yourself enough to stop allowing the cycle, to stop mistaking pain for passion, to stop hoping someone broken would ever know how to love someone whole. You realize something critical. It's not your job to fix people who benefit from staying damaged. Some of them don't want healing. They want chaos they can control. They want drama disguised as depth. They want victims who don't fight back. But you fought. You rose. You chose peace over patterns. And now they call you heartless, cold, different. Let them scream into the void that they created when they failed to water the very soul that fed them. You became what they feared, a version of yourself that doesn't need them, a version that learned not to chase closure, not to beg for decency, not to carry the weight of someone else's immaturity. You don't chase anymore. You attract. Because when you stop pouring into the ungrateful, your cup finally fills with focus, with power, with peace. And the truth is, you're not hard to love. You were just surrounded by people who didn't know what love actually means. Now you do, and it starts with choosing you every single time, without hesitation, without guilt. And when they see you now, glowing in the quiet, thriving in the stillness, unfazed by their absence, it eats at them. Not because they miss you, not really, but because you were never supposed to survive without them. They saw themselves as essential, irreplaceable, the core of your worth. And now that you walk like you never knew them, smile like they never hurt you, and build without looking back, they realize something terrifying. They weren't the center of your story, just a chapter, and not even a good one. Just a messy, painful lesson dressed up as love. That realization, it breaks people. because the same silence they once mocked is now the very thing that screams their failure. They lost someone who gave them more chances than they deserved, and now they're stuck with people who only know how to take, who don't bring what you brought, who don't feel like you felt. And there's no rewind button for that. They had the real, and they chose the temporary. They had substance, and they chased attention. And now they're starving in the shallow. But you're not chasing, not explaining, not breaking. You're building, quietly, steadily, fiercely. And yeah, maybe it still hurts sometimes. Maybe some nights you still feel the echo, still replay the words you never got to say. But that pain doesn't control you anymore. It fuels you. You've learned that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about understanding, about seeing it for what it was, and deciding to rise anyway. You've learned that peace isn't passive. It's a battle, a choice, a process. And you fight for it every day by choosing not to return to what broke you. That's strength. That's self-respect. That's power they'll never know. Because they're still running from themselves while you stand rooted in truth. You became the version of yourself they prayed you'd never become. The one that doesn't flinch. The one that doesn't answer late-night texts. The one that doesn't show up just because someone's finally ready to recognize your worth. You became unreachable. Not because you disappeared, but because you finally understood the value of your presence. And that scares people, because they're used to the old you. The one who gave endless chances. The one who stayed in toxic places just to protect what felt familiar. But the new you, the one who knows his worth, who loves without losing himself, that one's dangerous. That one's silent when disrespected. That one doesn't negotiate his peace, and that one, he doesn't come back. Let them sit in the mess they made. Let them feel the absence they created. You don't need revenge. Your evolution is enough. Your success is the apology they'll never give. Your peace is the revenge they'll never recover from. And your silence? That's the sound of someone who finally chose himself, who finally said, never again, and meant it. Let them feel that. Let it echo. Let it burn.